All right, hello everyone. Welcome to today's lesson. We're going to look at the Holocaust. Persecution begins. This is the first of two lessons on the Holocaust, and we'll look at the beginnings of the Holocaust in this lesson. Okay, objectives and standards. So we're going to look at analyzing the problems that face German Jews in Germany, and summarize the responses by the United States to Jewish refugees, and take a look at the standards there as well, please. Okay, a vocabulary preview of the Holocaust, the Nuremberg laws, and Kristallnacht. So think about this. How does a government discriminate against a certain group of people? I'd like you to answer this question in the question that says to think about this. You can pause the lesson now if you'd like and do that now, or if you'd like to go back to it at the end, that's fine as well. And our essential question, what persecution did certain people face in Germany during the 1930s? Okay, so the horror begins. So in 1933, remember that Hitler takes control in Germany. He ordered the removal of all non-Aryans from government jobs. Remember, those are people who he didn't believe were matched his idea of a perfect race. Okay? And this was his first step towards a policy of racial purity that would eventually lead to what is known as the Holocaust. And what the Holocaust was the murder of 11 million people, which sadly were more than half of them were those who were Jewish. So why did they target the Jewish? Those of Jewish faith or background were the main target of the Nazi Party. Germans had blamed those who were Jewish for many years for the problems in Germany. They believed that the Jewish were the reason they lost World War I. They believed other things about the Jewish that were negative. So there's this anti-Semitism or hatred of those who are Jewish. So Hitler also has a hatred of the Jewish, and he's able to build support for policies against those of Jewish beliefs based on the ideas that were going around Germany at the time. So in 1935, the Nuremberg laws were enacted, and these laws stripped the Jewish of their citizenship, their jobs, and their property. Those who were also Jewish were required to wear the bright yellow Star of David to identify them. So if they were walking down the street or in a store, they had to have this Jewish star on them so people knew that they were Jewish. November 9th to the 10th in 1938, Nazi stormtroopers damaged Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues across the country, and this becomes known as Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. Also, about 100 Jewish people were killed, and many more were injured, and of course, many were arrested. And what happened was that the Nazis claimed or blamed the Jewish for the event, saying that they were the ones responsible for it, and that the Nazis really had nothing to do with it, and this was just a ploy by the Jewish to make the Nazis look bad. So again, building that support for this harassment and hatred of those of the Jewish faith. And here's some pictures here of Kristallnacht. The one on the left-hand side of the screen, those are stores. You can see the broken glass, and you can see people looking and seeing what happened. The one in the top right corner, I believe, is a synagogue on fire. And then the one in the bottom right-hand corner, I'm not quite sure what that is. That may be a home or a business or a synagogue or a farm. I'm not quite sure. But again, they were burning buildings. They were breaking store windows, beating Jewish people up. It was like I said, it was not a good event for those of the Jewish faith. All right, so the idea of Hitler at first is he really wants to just get rid of the Jewish people. He wants to scare them and get them to leave the country. That way Germany can, go on with what it wants to do. So that was the whole idea of the Nazi Party. Part of it, to begin with, was to kick the Jewish people out of Germany. So they believed that by doing these things and harassing them, that many Jewish would just leave the country and go and do what they want. Okay. The problem is that not many countries around the world wanted to accept Jewish refugees. France had accepted a lot already, um, and when these Jewish refugees flee to other countries, many of them are refused, and even in the United States, many of the Jewish refugees would be refused. Some of them will be accepted, but we're going to look at an event in the next slide where they were refused to enter the United States. So this is the story of the St. Louis. The German ocean liner was carrying Jewish passengers past Miami in 1939. Now, just a little side note here, a lot of Americans didn't really want the Jewish refugees here. They were afraid that, it would ruined the whole idea of neutrality. Some of them believed that. Others had some, dislike of those of the Jewish faith, unfortunately, and others believed that, the Jewish coming into the country would, take away American jobs. There's a bunch of different issues going on why the American people are not really accepting of the Jewish refugees. So anyway, back to the story. The U.S. Coast Guard refused any passengers from leaving the ship. So any passengers on board the St. Louis were not allowed to leave, even though they had passports and proper documentation. They were not allowed to step off the ship, and the ship was unfortunately forced to return to Europe. Some of them, were accepted by other countries again. Some of them were not. Again, and unfortunately, many of these passengers would probably wind up in some horrible situations, and some of them will probably die because they were not accepted by the United States. Okay, so to just wrap it up, so remember that those of the Jewish faith and background face persecution and discrimination. The Nuremberg laws took away their property rights and individual rights and things of that nature. We also have the Night of Broken Glass, Kristallnacht, where many Jewish had their homes and their businesses or synagogues destroyed and, were beaten up for those matters. Remember, many of them tried to escape, but many were refused by other countries and told they had to, go back to where they were. Okay, so that's all I have for this lesson. So again, make sure you answer the questions, and I will see and talk to you later.